Today, I would like to briefly discuss the worrying situation of freedom of expression in Iran. You may have heard of the more well-known prisoners of conscience in Iran, as their plight makes it to international news once in a while. Yet there are so many more prisoners of conscience in the Islamic Republic of Iran than the world gets to hear about. My beloved Iranian poet, the late Simin Behbahani, once wrote, "I have put my poems forward for everyone to see. What can they be from the year 1979 onward? We wrote our books not with ink but with blood. No doubt the same is true about the works of every other poet." I would add to her words that the same is true for any other individual or group that hopes to freely express their opinions, beliefs, and grievances, may it be through arts, the press, social media, or by way of peacefully seeking justice. On the legal side of things, we know that Article 19 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ratified by Iran in 1975, partially reads that everyone shall have the right to hold opinions without interference. Article 19 further states that everyone shall have the right to freedom of expression. Meanwhile, the Constitution of the Islamic Republic remains vague and inadequate when it comes to freedom of expression. Article 24 of the Constitution undermines freedom of expression, such as being deemed harmful to the principles of Islam or the rights of the public. I can go on for long about the legal and structural inadequacies of the Islamic Republic that are essentially detrimental to freedom of expression in practice. However, for the purposes of today, let us briefly talk about the stories of two human rights defenders who have ended up in prison because of their peaceful activism in Iran. The stories are, in my opinion, self-explanatory when it comes to the dire situation of freedom of expression and the courageous plight of many in today's Iran who advocate for free expression and other violated human rights when behind bars, even when behind bars. It is because of the courage, resilience, and persistence of Iran's human rights activists, artists, youth, women, minority groups, journalists, lawyers, and others that I stay hopeful despite the increasingly worrying news that emerge on the ground every single day. Let us visit Sepideh Qolian in one of Iran's most difficult prison facilities. Sepideh is a young woman human rights defender who, as a freelance journalist, was covering the news and protests related to labor rights in marginalized parts of southern Iran. She was first arrested in November 2018 when covering the protests of sugarcane workers and was rearrested in 2020. Today she remains in jail. While behind bars, the young and compassionate human rights defender that she is, Sepideh wrote a heart-wrenching book, her prison memoirs, if you will, that includes her beautiful illustrations and narratives of the ordeal that women prisoners have to endure in Iranian prisons. She begins her book by the following opening. "I fear that I will not survive. To say I'm horrified does not convey my feelings. I feel something hot running out of my body. I am entirely mute. I cannot so much as groan when they beat me." Let us also meet Zahra Mohammadi, another young woman who endured imprisonment for her peaceful cultural work. Zahra is the director and a founding member of a Kurdish cultural association that raises awareness of the legal and cultural rights of ethnic groups in Iran. In doing so, she promotes cultural education, holding Kurdish language classes in various cities in her region in the country. She's now sentenced to multiple years in prison for her peaceful cultural work and activism. The list of such prisoners whose freedom of expression is explicitly being violated every single day is sadly long, and yet my time is short. Allow me to finish this statement by quoting yet again the courageous late Simin Behbahani, whose words I mentioned earlier on. As she has written in one of her poems, "To stay alive, you must slay silence. To pay homage to being, you must sing." As evident in the contemporary history of Iran, the country's human rights defenders, independent arts and cultural circles, and others alike will not be silenced no matter how hard the censorship and repressive apparatus of the Islamic Republic intimidates, harasses, imprisons, and kills them. Iran's human rights advocates are not even silenced while behind bars and put under excruciating conditions. Their story, will go on until freedom of expression is achieved, until justice is prevailed.